Shabbat Shalom. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be your living sanctuary for you. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be your living sanctuary for you. Olam chesed yibaneh, yalalai, yalalai, yalalai. 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 I will build this world from love. Yalalai, yalalai, yalalai. And you will build this world from love. Yalalai, yalalai, yalalai. And if we build this world from love, yalalai, 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 then God will build this world from love. Yalalai, yalalai, yalalai.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It is wonderful to spend this Shabbat with you and to celebrate the 35th year of interfaith partnership that we share at Temple Bethel with our neighbors and friends at St. Joan of Arc Catholic Church. This wonderful weekend of interfaith partnership that dates back decades was the gift of Doris and Merwin Grossberg of blessed memory, who, through the work of the American Jewish Committee and my predecessor, Rabbi Merle Singer and Monsignor John McMahon, forged an interfaith partnership in Boca Raton that was really the first interfaith partnership between houses of worship in our city. And that partnership led to the creation of the Boca Raton Interfaith Clergy Association and all of the wonderful interfaith partnerships that we are blessed to enjoy. So one must ask, how does one begin an interfaith partnership? How does that happen? Well, the first interfaith partnership that linked Catholics and Jews was one that took place more than 50 years ago, almost 60 years ago, between the famous Rabbi Dr. Abraham Joshua Heschel and Pope Paul VI. During the time that the Vatican II Council was meeting, there was a document that was created called Nostra Aetate, which tried to redefine how the Catholic Church would interact with all of the different religious traditions of the world, including the Jewish people. And so, in order to understand what it was that the Jewish community needed from the Catholic Church, in order to forge bonds of understanding and a new sense of reunion and familiarity, the Catholic Church, through Cardinal Bay, reached out to Rabbi Heschel in New York, where a memo was drafted that talked about how it would be possible for the Jewish people and the Catholic Church to build bonds of collaboration and cooperation and understanding. Eventually, Rabbi Heschel traveled to Rome to talk about the need that the Jewish people had for the Catholic Church to recognize us as Jews who follow our own path and our own tradition, not because we believe it to be more right or less right than that of Catholic tradition, but because it is our truth that we follow. And there was a lot of discussion in the church as to whether they should hold on to the idea, the hope that Jews will one day all convert to Christianity, to join the Catholic Church. And what Rabbi Heschel said in an extraordinary moment to the Pope is he said, as I have repeatedly stated to leading personalities of the Vatican and now to you, I am ready to go to Auschwitz at any time if faced with the alternative of conversion or death. And it has been said that after Heschel met with Pope Paul VI, that line in the text that still hoped for Jews to convert was crossed out by the Pope's own pen. Because what happens when we engage in interfaith dialogue is we don't simply understand each other's truths. We understand our shared humanity. For so long and for too many times in history, in ancient times, in medieval times, modern times, and contemporary times, we have linked the idea that if someone holds on to a truth that is not ours, then they are somehow less human than we, somehow less deserving of care or approbation, somehow less deserving of respect or even a sense of life itself. We see how those discords such violence, such horror, such scars on the history of humanity. But when we have had moments in our people's history where we have let go of our prejudices, we have let go of our preconceived sense of monopoly of the truth, and open our hearts and our minds with curiosity about the other, trying to understand why does that human being who was also created in God's own image think differently than I do? Believe differently than I do? How do they understand their path to God? And what can I learn about mine by trying to understand how someone else treads their path? And how can they learn about how they live from trying to understand me? Because the fact is that in the book of Leviticus, in understanding holiness, God teaches us, Ve'ahavta l'reyecha kamocha, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You shall try to make the experience of that other person who lives near you, who may be like you or not like you, so you can love them and understand them and create a sense of unity, not uniformity, but a sense of oneness that can link our lives together. Because when we take that sense of uniqueness in each and every individual human being and bring together those differences in a sense of oneness, it is then and only then that we can really find our way to be one with our God, who is also one. And so we are blessed this Shabbat to have Rabbi Dr. Joshua Garroway from the Hebrew Union College, from whom we had such a joy to learn last night, and whom we will have a chance to learn with also this evening and at Mass 12:15 on Sunday. And we look forward to a wonderful weekend. It is my pleasure to now have a chance to have my good friend and colleague, Monsignor Michael Mcgraw from St. Joan of Arc Catholic Church, to offer greetings from their community.
I'm pleased to, on behalf of St. Joan of Arc Catholic Church, to recommit ourselves and to be so thrilled about our Shabbat and our interfaith collaboration that has been going on, I believe, for about 35 years. So we are celebrating something that has a long history of interfaith collaboration and learning between Temple Bethel and St. Joan of Arc. And I'm happy to acknowledge the invitation and the presence of Rabbi Joshua Garroway, who has such a distinguished history in interfaith and relationships with Christianity. Some of the evening services, especially Interfaith Shabbat, what can Jews learn from Catholicism? What can Catholics learn from Judaism? Certainly we can learn a lot, as we have in the past, from each other, and really be enriched by this unique partnership between St. Joan of Arc and Temple Bethel. So on behalf of St. Joan of Arc and our people, we want to welcome Rabbi Garroway and look forward to what he can share with us about the relationship between Christianity and Judaism. So please, I ask all of the St. Joan of Arc parishioners to consider their participation in this, and to thank all of our brothers and sisters at Temple Bethel. This again will be a wonderful example of how Christians and Jews can work together and grow together and spiritually benefit from each other's presence. And it's kind of a unique situation that we're right across the street from each other. So we see each other every day, and it is a most blessed collaboration between the temple and our church. So God bless and keep all of you in this wonderful event, which comes every year. And this year, we look forward to it with great enthusiasm. Thank you.
We're grateful for the support of Monsignor Mcgraw and his community, and for those from St. Joan who are sharing our worship this evening, welcome. And we all look forward to our next year's Interfaith Weekend, when we can be together in person in our sanctuary, in yours, and we can physically be across the street from each other and not just virtually. It's now my blessing and privilege to invite Andy Broido and Robin Eisenberg to lead us in Shabbat Candles and Kiddush.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav b'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
The heaven and the earth were finished, and all their array. On the seventh day, God finished the work that God had been doing. And God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of creation that God had done.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei pari hagafen, amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon inhilanu zikaron lamase v'reishit. Ki hu yom tehila Mcgraw kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Ki banu baharta liotanu ki Bikashta Mikol Hamim V'Shabbat Kodsha Ve'ava Uvratzon Hin Haltanu Baruch Atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
L'chaim. Robin and Andy, it is such a joy and a privilege to celebrate with you on this very special time when we celebrate two really important milestones, your 20th anniversary from your original wedding and your special birthdays that you are celebrating. We are so blessed, Robin and Andy, by all that you have given to our congregation and our community over the many decades you have helped to lead us both professionally and through your volunteer service. There were so many Sundays and so many generations of religious school students, Robin, who shaped and formed their Jewish identities and many times their Jewish careers because of your influence and your inspiration. And Andy, when I think about all of those years of Mitzvah Day, when you were up literally before the sun to mark out whether it was our Mitzvah Day Dash course or any of the other different things that you have done to make a difference in our community, we are so blessed by all that you continue to give and do, not just for our community, but God willing for each other. And so we pray that these many years that will follow from here be filled with health, with life, and with love, and with peace. And so you may kiss the bride.
Simin tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simin tov, simin tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simin tov, simin tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simin tov, yelanu.
Mazel tov, happy birthday, happy anniversary. And now as we take a few moments, just try to center yourself, ground yourself. The events of the last week have been for many dramatic and important and emotional. And now we come to Shabbat where we can set all of that aside, allow ourselves to literally just try to inhabit this moment and to embrace the peace of Shabbat.
Shalom Aleichem, Malchei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Bimelech, Malchei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. able, please rise as we continue with the Baruch Hu. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Yalalai-dai-dai, 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 yalalai-dai-dai. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed. Yalalai-dai-dai, 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 yalalai-dai-dai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim v'chochma potech she'arim u'vitvuna mishane itim u'machalif et hazemanim u'mesader et hakochavim b'mishmaroteim barakia kirtzono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or.
Umavir yom umevir laila, umavdir bein yom uvein laila, Adonai tzivaot shemo, El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Ama'ariv aravim. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha avta, Amcha avta. Torah u'mitzvot, u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, otanu limadeta. Alkei Adonai Eloheinu v'shochteinu, v'kumeinu na'asiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Torotcha, v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayeh, le'orech yameinu, u'va'em negei yomam v'layla, negei yomam v'layla. Yahavatam tasir mimeinu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Please be seated as we continue with Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha vehayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom halevavecha Veshinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha וכתבתם המזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
In The Art of Blooming Late by Ken Evers in the Harvard Business Review, he talks about Mozart, who really flourished only later in life. It is sometimes the late bloomers that only at the later time in life realize success that is powerful and potent in a week when we have inaugurated the oldest president we have ever had. And so we look backwards in this week to the biblical text and Moses, who himself was a late bloomer. We see him in his moment as a baby and then a little bit of his earlier years, but 4/5 of Torah really focuses on Moses 80 and older in the time of wandering through the desert and leading the Jewish people and ultimately dying before the land and entering the land of Israel. But it is that late bloomer Moses who has a relationship with God that is so powerful and potent that Moses and God have a beautiful, beautiful, loving relationship that is illustrated at many moments throughout Torah. And we even watch Moses grow. There are moments as he is 80 and 90 and 100 and 120 when he becomes frustrated and annoyed with God, but ultimately praised at the very end of his life. And our relationship with other faiths in the world has also sometimes been late blooming. We know from the beginning of Judaism that there have always been those who have criticized us or wanted us to take a different path. But in the year 2021, we are blessed to have a history of interfaith relations that, while late blooming, is so powerful and potent and beautiful and something we celebrate this weekend. But there is no late blooming needed in order to pray. With the words of Mcgraw, which we'll sing in a moment, it does not matter if you are a baby or a child or a late bloomer or whatever, in order to raise your voice in praise to God. We continue with the words of Mcgraw.
Say כיפן אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, Leshalom. Vehamidenu, Shomrenu L'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Hashkivenu, Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, Leshalom. Hashkivenu.
The way that our cycle of working with Bar Bat Mitzvah students is right now, we are working with students whose Torah portions many months from now are about the Jubilee and about letting the land lie fallow for a year, the Shemitah year, the year that the land relaxes. Of course, that is echoed in what we do every week in Judaism, where Friday night to Saturday night is Shabbat, a day of rest. Christianity has Sunday as its day of rest, and Islam incorporates Friday. These major religions have a day of rest, not just to lie down, but to let everything else go, to let the stress of work go, and to focus on what is going on inside and outside in terms of relationship with God and with our people. Whatever the day of rest is that is part of your tradition, it is essential to be better in the week ahead. We continue with the Vishamru that reflects the power and beauty and majesty of having that day of rest.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי,
וביום השביעי,
שבת וינפש,
שבת וינפש.
Wow. Shabbat vayinafash. Everybody. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
On this weekend, when we celebrate the interfaith partnership between Temple Bethel and St. Joan of Arc Catholic Church, I'm thinking of the fact that all religions have a way to prayer. We all pray in our own way, at our own times, even in our own languages. But of all the differences that we have, one thing that unites us is that each of us find a way to commune with the Holy One. For us, for Jews, the pinnacle of our prayer is the Amidah, the moment during the service when we rise on our feet and have a moment to share with God our innermost thoughts, connecting with the history of our people and our future, and praying that the Holy One will hear our prayers. Please rise.
Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi yagi teilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim ve'Konei Hakol, ve'Zocher Chastei Avot ve'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei v'Neihem, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומיתו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. In a moment, we'll have some time for silent prayer and meditation. And after we do, we are going to hear the words of a newer song called Stand Strong, written by Laurie Akers, a cantorial soloist outside Chicago. It speaks of different people who have their differences, but who reach out to one another to grab hold of one another, celebrate their differences, and knowing that if they work together, they stand strong and stand stronger than if they stood apart. During this weekend, as he celebrates the interfaith partnership that we have with our friends across the street, we celebrate what it means for different groups of peoples to come together and stand strong. We'll take a moment now for silent prayer and meditation.
Take my hand, I'll take yours. Together we can open doors. If you see me and I see you, for who we are, then we'll get through. If we sing one song, we stand strong. You feel alone and you're confused. You witness hatred and abuse. You don't know what to do. You see the world is full of strife. So many seek a better life. You ask, what can I do? Take my hand and I'll take yours. Together we can open doors. If you see me and I see you, for who we are, then we'll get through. If we sing one song, we stand strong. No more hatred, no more war. We will rise up one day more. We know what to do. We will love, not fight the way. That's our promise for today. This is what we'll do. Take my hand and I'll take yours. Together we will open doors. If you see me and I see you, together we will come through. If we sing one song, we stand strong. We are not alone. 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 Take my hand and I'll take yours. Together we will open doors. If you see me and I see you, for who we are, then we'll come through. If we sing one song,
why would the Reform Movement Seminary and the oldest Jewish institution of higher learning in our country hire a professor of early Christianity? Why would a recent ordinee of the Hebrew Union College, a newly ordained rabbi, decide to go to Yale Divinity School to pursue a PhD in early Christianity? This weekend, as we celebrate the interfaith relationship between the Jewish community and the Catholic community, what we're learning about is that we as Jews have a lot to learn from the Catholic community. And we're going to hear that tonight from Rabbi Dr. Joshua Garroway, who was a teacher of mine, and now I'm happy to call him a colleague and a friend. Rabbi Garroway serves as the Saul and Arlene Bronstein Professor of Judeo-Christian Studies and Professor of Early Christianity and Second Commonwealth Judaism at the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion in Los Angeles. He was ordained in the Cincinnati campus of HUC in 2003 and then went on to Yale University, where he got his doctorate in 2008. And it was that fall that both he and I arrived together at the LA campus, and our teacher and student relationship began. Everything I know about Christianity and everything that I know about the relationship between Christianity and Judaism, I learned from Rabbi Garroway and our time together, learning together. We learned about other things as well, and I think it's a little auspicious that he is joining us this evening. We learned today of the death of Hank Aaron, one of the greatest baseball players of all time, and one of the things that Rabbi Garroway and I would talk about other than our work together was baseball, a thing that both he and I enjoy. He is a native of Rochester, New York, and he lives in Pasadena with his wife, Professor Christy Garroway, who is also a professor at HUC, a teacher of Bible, and another one of my teachers. And we are in for a treat tonight. For those of you who joined us last night to hear about the story of St. Paul and his relationship with the Jewish community, we are here to learn more from Rabbi Garroway, who will answer the question, what do Jews have to learn from Catholicism? I'm very excited. It's been many, many years that I wanted to bring you here to Temple Bethel. And Josh, although tonight is not the way we imagined it by doing it on Zoom, the fact that we get to learn from you tonight is a special Shabbat treat for everyone. And so I am pleased to welcome to Temple Bethel Rabbi Dr. Joshua Garroway.
Okay. I hope that I'm unmuted and that everyone can see me. It's quite a marvel that I'm thousands of miles away and that this is working. Thank you for that very warm introduction, Greg. It is a delight to be here. I'm glad that you mentioned something about baseball, especially since it was this year when the Dodgers finally won and you weren't here. I have a pre-recorded message that will be played at Sunday at the church next door, and I made sure to fit the Dodgers into that message as well. This week's Torah portion, Parashat Bo, concludes with the Israelites about to depart from Egypt. Next week in Parashat Beshalach, they will leave Egypt, flee from Pharaoh's chariots, and ultimately find salvation when God parts the sea on their behalf. It is a magnificent climax to the Exodus story. And perhaps most magnificent in the telling of that story is the Song of the Sea, Shirat Hayam, the poetry of Exodus chapter 15, in which the Israelites extol the unsurpassable majesty of God. They sing, as the Chazan sang so beautifully earlier, Micha mocha ba'elim Adonai, who is like you among the gods that are worshipped? And they proclaim, again, as the Chazan sang so beautifully, Ze Eli, this is my God. According to later Jewish tradition, when the Israelites said, this is my God, they were pointing to the heavens. This is my God, they said, because they saw God, God's self, hovering over the sea. They saw God. Only months later, they would see God again, of course, this time hovering atop Mount Sinai, bellowing out the Ten Commandments. They not only saw God, they heard the very voice of God. I have to be honest, I'm jealous of that first generation of redeemed Israelites. Subsequent generations of Jews have been less fortunate. After Moses, no Jew saw God. The prophets were granted visions that resembled God, and they conveyed those messages from God to Jews who were lucky enough to hear them. But within a few centuries, prophecy also came to an end. When prophecy ended, at least there was still the temple in Jerusalem, a place where Jews believed that the presence of God on earth resided. Encountering God at the temple became impossible when it was destroyed by the Romans in the year 70. Since then, we Jews have had to rely upon books. We have become the people of the book, who encounter God by studying God's will expressed in our sacred tomes and by living out God's will for our lives accordingly. Now, I'm the last person to complain about the bookish nature of Jewish religion. Study and interpretation and dialectic and argument, well, these quite frankly are my favorite things about being a Jew. But at the same time, I do occasionally find myself longing for the more immediate sort of encounters with God that were available to our ancestors. I love to read and study the Ten Commandments, but I often wonder how much more amazing it might have been to hear them as they trumpeted forth from the mountaintop. I love to read the prophet Isaiah, but how much more penetrating must it have been to have stood before the prophet himself as he proclaimed his message? Alas, that is the fate of the modern Jew. We have indoor plumbing and antibiotics and air travel and Zoom, but the kind of divine encounter that really knocks your socks off is harder to come by. As a kid, I never got the sense that this remoteness was any kind of shortcoming in Judaism. An immediate encounter with God or God's voice or God's presence was nothing I cared too much about. That began to change when I embarked on a friendship that would transform fundamentally the way I think about Judaism. My new friend was my study partner in graduate school, an observant Catholic man, a Notre Dame graduate, and now a professor of Bible at the Jesuit Fordham University in New York City. It is impossible to relate just how much I have learned from him about Catholicism. And I think he'd say just how much he has learned about Judaism from me. One of the conversations I recall most vividly saw us interrogating some of the more bizarre elements in our traditions. Our friendship had reached the point where we could ask each other tough questions. He asked me, for example, what it felt like for Jewish parents to watch their own infant son be circumcised and then somehow eat a tuna fish sandwich afterwards with friends as if nothing had happened. He asked why a prohibition against eating an animal in the milk of its mother, which makes a bit of sense, would nonetheless have anything to do with a chicken, which doesn't make milk. Then it was my turn. And I went straight to the question that experience has taught me intrigues Jews most about Catholicism. What is it like, I asked, to eat God? I am referring, of course, to the Eucharist or communion, the ritual in which wafer and wine are transformed into the body and blood of Christ, and then consumed by the believer. What followed was one of the most eye-opening discussions I've ever had. My friend explained to me that many Catholics think about communion as having both a horizontal and a vertical aspect. Like a cross, the symbol of Christianity, which has a vertical pole and a horizontal crossbeam. The horizontal aspect of communion refers to the sense of unity a Catholic feels with all the other Catholics who are sharing in that meal. Catholics beside them in their own church, Catholics in their diocese, Catholics throughout the world. And it reminds them of their obligation to love and care for one another, and not just their fellow Catholics, but all of humanity. The vertical aspect of communion, on the other hand, refers to that mystical union between the believer below and God above. I asked my friend if he really felt as though communion allowed him to feel connected directly and intimately with Christ, with God. Yes, he said, and that sense of oneness with God lasts throughout the day, throughout the week, until it is renewed the following Sunday. At first, I was incredulous, but not long after, I became jealous. Jealous like I am of the ancient Israelites who believed that they saw God and heard God or felt the presence of God in the temple. Such jealousy isn't such a bad thing, I've learned. The great Lutheran Bishop Krister Stendhal, a professor at Harvard and a pioneer of Jewish-Christian relations in the 1970s and 1980s, once said that interfaith dialogue is only possible when participants are willing to open themselves to a kind of jealousy, what he called holy envy, the willingness to express admiration for features of another religion that they would like to incorporate into their own tradition in an appropriate way. I have a measure of holy envy for Catholic communion. Not for the horizontal aspect so much. I think we Jews do a good job of facilitating a sense of camaraderie among the Jews of our community, our city federations, our nation, Israel, and the world. We call it Jewish peoplehood, and we Jews tend to look out for one another in an enviable way. And we in the Reform movement, especially, have proven adept at expanding our obligations to our fellow Jews into a love and concern for humanity as a whole. But the vertical component, less so. Among the Jews I know, Reform, conservative, Orthodox, secular, or otherwise, and I interact with a lot of Jews, I rarely hear them speak about immediate encounters with God, direct connections between us below and God above. It's not even that they express frustration with the difficulty of finding such encounters in Judaism. It's that they don't even consider such encounters a part of religious experience. Revelation, prophecy, the temple, they're a part of Judaism's past, not its present. This lack of vertical theology in traditional Judaism may well explain the thriving of certain mystical movements in Judaism over the past few centuries. Hasidism arose in Poland in the 18th century and swept across Eastern Europe in the 19th century by claiming that direct encounters with God indeed were possible through song or dance or kavanah or through interface with the human bridge to God on earth, namely the Rebbe. Hasidism in Europe was annihilated by the Nazis, of course, but today it is growing in America in large part due to the ongoing expansion of Chabad. And even in Reform and secular settings, Kabbalistic traditions are becoming more common. And we all know about the celebrities who have given a public face to Jewish mysticism. But in the main, I have found that most Jews still find Kabbalistic traditions, well, frankly, a bit weird. And if there is interest in Kabbalah, it is often of the superficial sort, a lovely teaching here, a meditation there, a Sabbath melody that gives one the feeling of spirituality. But traditional Kabbalists would contend that the direct encounter with God that they seek can hardly be achieved quickly or easily. It takes years of study and discipline and practice, the sort of study, discipline, and practice that is simply incompatible with the ordinary life of most contemporary Jews. And again, that to me is precisely the marvel of Catholic communion. That a run-of-the-mill Catholic, a person with a job and a family and obligations to the world that preclude hours per day spent in rigorous self-discipline, can walk into a church, sit down at Mass, and encounter God in a direct, powerful, and awe-inspiring way. Now, I don't have an answer. I don't know how we Jews might go about incorporating what I find compelling about communion into Jewish life and observance in an appropriate way. And it may well be that Judaism just isn't built that way. But when we gather next week to hear the Song of the Sea chanted from the Torah, and we hear the Israelites point to the heavens and proclaim, Ze Eli, this is my God, perhaps we might reflect more deeply on what that experience of seeing God, hearing God, and feeling God might have been like, and how we might reproduce that sort of communion with God, for ourselves and for our fellow Jews. Thank you again for having me into your virtual synagogue this evening. Amen and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, and thank you, Dr. Garroway, for a beautiful exposition talk. We thank you for what you gave us last night, which was so fascinating, looking into the Apostle Paul in tonight's program. We hope everybody will log on to St. Joan of Arc Catholic Church's Facebook page to watch the live stream of their Mass for 12:15 on Sunday, where we'll have an opportunity to learn a little bit more with Dr. Garroway. So thank you so very, very much. This time we turn our thoughts to those who are in need of God's healing presence. We say, may the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel, send your blessings of healing to those in our families, those in our community, and around the world who are in need of your special blessings of healing on this Shabbat. We add in our prayers tonight Daniela Acuna, Samuel Agranal, Perry Bear, Mildred Barinholtz, Fred Belkin, Jen Berkowitz, Barbara Bernardi, Margie Berman Block, Bert Bongard, Kathleen Bowersox, Lawrence Bullman, Sharon Dakota, Shelley Ann Digest, Lynn Edinger, Arnold Erne, Estelle Erne, Eileen Feinerman, Peter Feldman, Rhonda Findlay, Marty Fromowitz, Jerome Glassman, Louis Goldberg, Nate Goldberg, Jake Goldstein, Stephanie Hallio, Barbara Herman, Kenny Herman, Keith Homer, Bob Isaacson, David Kaiser, Michelle Cahan, Dina Katz, Norman Kaufman, Kristen Kay, Florence Coyce, Judy Karnitsky, Mickey Cutler, Rebecca Martino, Jessel Martins, Charles Meacham, Maria Melamed, Victoria Nelson, Lisa Nyron, Alexandra Paralik Bergbauer, Dan Perez, Arnold Putterman, Ronald Rohan, Ellen Romberg, Cynthia Romero, Melissa Rose, Eileen Rosenbaum, Alan Rosenfeld, Ellie Ross, Sharon Rubin, Ruth Moria, Batshashana Miriam, Bonnie Schaefer, Mark Sham, Barry Shapiro, Bernice Shore, Len Sirowitz, Mickey Sirowitz, Lawrence Spitz, Michael Sprinzen, Tyler Stos, Martin Surnamer, Tova Bat Esther, Audrey Weinberg, Jeff Wissot, Israel Yamuter, Joel Ziegler, and Zohara Aviva Batarav Moshe, Ruvain, Vaharav Rachel. May God shelter them and help them find a path towards healing, a refuah shlema, a complete recovery, a healing of body and a healing of spirit, along with all those who may be ill. May healing come speedily, and together let us say, Amen.
Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Please rise if you're able as we continue with the Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gedula le'yotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei aratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam,
Our thoughts turn now to those whom we have lost, those whose lives have left us a legacy of love and understanding, of wisdom and goodness, whose memories we cherish each and every day, and whose spirits are woven into the fabric of our families and our lives. On this Shabbat, we remember Faye Edelman, Rabbi Jeffrey L. Ballin, Alma Belkov, Carol Benek, Vera Bernstein, Frida Billig, Harriet Binder, Evelyn Bolner, Michelle Brody, Marcia Brown, Maurice S. Buxbaum, Lois Ann Chaikin, Ethel Cohen, Jack Cohen, Alice Cohen, Richard Comras, Jean Koof, Esther Davis, Eleanor Fallon Durr, Stephen Allen Distel, Charles Dorfman, Terry Gale Dubov Richmond, Samuel Edison, Alvin Eichler, Susan Falk, Harry Feldman, Elaine Finder, Leonard Fliegler, Sidney Frager, Walter Frank, Sadie Friedman, Robert Gleeman, Alan Gluckstern, Nellie Grupper Gold, Helen Goldberg, Michael I. Goldberg, Ella Paul Gordon, Milton G. Gordon, Rose Gottlieb, Blanche Gottlieb, Michael Gottlieb, Monroe Greenbaum, Annie Greenstein, Merle Holstein, Fernando Ibarra, Harold Ivers, Alexander Kalmore, Adele Cantor, Ann Kaplan, Audrey Kalin, Adam Klein, Harriet Klein, Dorothy Landman, Matthew Langley, Beatrice Lastman, Rose Legum, Leslie Line Needleman, Lillian Levine, Irving Levine, Saul Lind, Edith Lipinski, Samuel Lux, Molly Lux, Paul Lux, Henry Manson, Paul Markoff, Leslie Line Needleman, Gertrude Overman, Howard Edward Parker, Rose Parzan, Saul Pedvis, Michael Palavin, Helen Pinsker, Sam Plow, Abraham Ronald, Beverly Rossman, Deborah Rothberg, Sylvia Ruderman, Irene Judith Satin, Helen Schnee, Irma Schneier, Eugene Schwartz, Benjamin Seiler, David Sherman, Ria Chain Schindel, Belle Silberstein, Hyman M. Santz, Abraham Stopak, Louis Tone, Hyman Trinkowski, Samuel Urbach, Walter S. Warheit, Sarah Fell Wasserman, Herman Weinberg, Molly Weinberg, Samuel Weinstein, Jordan Weiss, Gloria Winter, and Norman Worth. And we add with sorrowing hearts those who relate to rest in recent days, whose memories we cherish in the 30 days of Shloshim. Charles Ryback, Craig Donoff, Jamie Eisenberg, Wendy Ebro, Michelle Villanova, Janet Rosenblum, Craig Elliott Schechter, Sophia Lambert, Devorah Goldhair, Elaine Kuntz, Bertha Snyder, and Stephen Feller. We think about those also whom you hold in your hearts, as together we praise God's name for the gift of life with the words of Kaddish. Together we say, Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehe Shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'amei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha brichu ve'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav v'ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who makes peace in the high heavens grant peace to us, to all Israel, and to all who mourn, and we say amen. Want to send a special thank you again to Rabbi Dr. Joshua Garroway, our scholar in residence this weekend, and we thank him for sharing so much with us this week. And also a special mazel tov to Robin Eisenberg and Andy Broido on their anniversary and special birthdays. Tomorrow morning at 9:30, we encourage you to join us for Torah study. Tomorrow's Torah study is going to be an epochal event because we are going to finally conclude the reading and the study of the book of Exodus. For more than 4 years now, every Saturday, we have picked away of the 40 chapters of the book of Exodus, word by word, line by line. And tomorrow we'll have a special siyum, a celebration, as we conclude the reading of the book of Exodus. And then next week, join us as we begin Leviticus. It may not take 4 years for us to conclude that book, but we hope that you will join us for Torah study. Greg has reminded me it wasn't 4 years of Exodus, it was 7 years. I am amazed that it took that long, but hey, it's the book of Exodus. There's a lot to study there. Also want to remind everybody that tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Beck Family Campus will be the Early Learning Center's Family Fun Day Drive-Through Carnival. You can meet the administrative staff, teachers, and parenthood volunteers, learn about our amazing Early Learning Center, the very best in our community, and our synagogue while you enjoy a fun-filled drive-through experience. There's going to be games, entertainment, food, and more that can all be enjoyed from the comfort of your car. I can't wait to see this. I'll be there along with Rabbi Mates and Rabbi Weissman. We hope that you will join us, of course, with all of our ELC crew. Sunday, our Interfaith Weekend continues with Mass at St. Joan of Arc Catholic Church. It's the 12:15 Mass. If you go onto Facebook and you search for St. Joan of Arc Catholic Church, you will find their page where you can watch the Mass. Wednesday, January 27th from 4 to 5 p.m., we will have the Colors of the Wind, Songs and Teachings for Tu B'Shvat, which will be an afternoon of inspiring songs and reading celebrating Tu B'Shvat, the birthday of the trees. And that will be led by our cantorial soloist, Michelle Oslander-Cohen, and Rabbi Amy Pessa. And next Friday night, please join us for an extraordinary Shabbat at 7:30, where we will commemorate Shabbat Shirah, the Sabbath of Song. It will be an incredible way that we will honor the legacy of the great Jewish folk composer, Debbie Friedman. If you missed Cantor Lori Brock's incredible tribute to Debbie, you can see that at Temple Bethel's archives. Go to the website www.tbeboca.org and you will find the archives of all of the pre-recorded programs. You will learn about the history and the life of Debbie Friedman, and also prepare yourself for this celebration of song we will have next Shabbat. And now we invite you, please, if you have your challah at home, grab your challah. I have some right here. And if you will join me, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom.